By the way, the Constitution does not have any provision in it for redistribution of wealth. It is not an allowable activity of the federal government. So how could the president stand up and say he's going to do it? Boggles my mind. But let me say something. The very way that the administration is handling life right now is doing the redistribution of wealth. The stimulus package had nothing to do with stimulus. It had only to do with redistribution of wealth in the following way. What he does is he turns around and gives money to the less productive people in society, to the people he wants to redistribute the wealth to. He does it by writing checks for which there's no money to cover, creating huge additional debt. The debt that's going to be paid for only by the 50% of the people who are paying taxes, and not by the 50% of the people who are getting the government's largesse. Some specifics of the tax laws. The tax laws that are being created that are being created in ways that serve solely the narrow political purposes, of the legislators. They raise money in ways that are absolutely abhorrent. A significant way that they raised money as part of the health care proposal, for example, was by putting a ridiculous burden on small businesses, which will be felt in combination by all small businesses on the one hand, and by everybody who consumes anything, because everything is going to cost a lot more, because the small businesses now in every business, small and large, will have to submit huge amounts of paperwork in new 1099 proposals. Now listen to this. Despite the fact that it is pretty clear that we, making the noise we have, are going to get that provision repealed, we're very confident that we're going to get it repealed because everybody knows that it was a sucker punch to try to be able to pad some revenue raisers into the budget. But they just passed a new some new business legislation, so small business stimulus. Well, the way they paid for that stimulus, one of the ways they paid for it was by increasing the responsibilities of that very 1099 proposal that everybody knows is now going to be withdrawn. The law is a fraud from the beginning. It is dishonest, and anybody who studies it knows that to be the fact. What it just tells us is that the politicians who voted for it either were dishonest, or if you give them the benefit of the doubt, they were clueless. One other provision that I want to mention, because it's something that I think we like. We've heard of Roth conversions and Roth IRAs. I recommend that for my clients because it's my job to do what's best for my clients. But make no mistake, the very concept of a Roth IRA and Roth conversions is a fraud being perpetrated against our grandchildren. We are being asked to pay taxes now on income that we're going to earn 20 years from now. So we pay the taxes on it now, and our grandchildren will then not have the money, because when that income is earned, the people who earned it will say, I paid my taxes back 20 years ago, and the Obama administration spent it, and it was buried in their budget as an income item. Well, it's not income, it's borrowing from the future. If the SEC had any responsibility over federal tax legislation, our legislators would be in jail. There is nobody at Enron, nobody in any of those fraudulent activities that we've read about the last few years who has done anything as bad as what the federal government has done in terms of inducing us to really screw the future generations. It's absolutely outrageous. Just to show that Albany is part of the same, made out of the same cloth, Albany this year couldn't balance its budget. knew the taxpayers didn't want to have any additional taxes, and said, well, how can we kind of sneak some extra taxes in when people aren't looking? Said, you know what? People need to commute, so if we call it a commuter tax, they'll never know that we're passing it because we can't balance our budget up in Albany. So they passed this Metropolitan Commuter Transportation Mobility Tax, whose provisions, there's one major characteristic of this that is not common among taxes, and that is that it probably costs substantially more to administer than it will raise. In other words, our elected officials don't care if it costs a business $1,000 in order to administer and pay over $200 worth of tax. They just don't care. The law is an outrage. The reason it is such an outrage is because it was absolutely last minute loophole, budget balancing, and they didn't care what it cost for the constituents. Let me close by saying that doing what I do in an office 24/7 can be very frustrating. I am not a speaker by profession, but seeing all the people here today, I felt that I was really glad to be able to be among people that can help me share this load. And anything that I've said would enable you to go out and encourage as many people as possible to vote on Tuesday, it will be best for us. It's not doing anything for anybody except for us. The only honorable thing to do is to make sure that the people who brought us here are not there to continue it after Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. That was fabulous. I have two comments, Alan. The first is, you said it so well, even I could understand what you talked about. Thank you. And the second is, you asked how Barack Obama can enact redistribution of wealth. And I want to quote Andy Stern, former president of the SEIU. He said in front of a camera once, speaking to the United States people, "We believe in the power of persuasion. And if that doesn't work, we believe in the persuasion of power." How dare that guy talk that way? If he wants to see power, he's going to get it.